Hello and welcome back. Today our topic is all about population growth, and we are going to talk about how populations can grow, what prevents them from growing infinitely, and we're going to talk a little bit about the human population and where we're at with our population growth. So let's dive in. Can populations continue to grow forever? That's sort of the main question and what we're going to answer throughout this entire presentation, but can populations grow forever and ever and ever? And the answer is no way. Absolutely not. And there's a reason for that, and we call them limiting factors. So limiting factors are what prevent populations from growing out of control. And there's a lot of things that can be limiting to the growth of a population. But some of them include predators, disease, the prey that are there, available habitat, natural disasters, unusual weather, human interference. All of these things can limit the growth of a population, right? So think about if you were like a deer in the woods and all of a sudden humans come in and cut down half of your habitat. Well, now you don't have enough space to comfortably live as the population you were, and so your population will start to decrease to readjust and refit into the new habitat that has been created. So these limiting factors prevent populations from growing infinitely and excessively. So when we talk about population growth, there is a specific graph that we always will reference. And so I am going to ask you to draw this graph, and I am going to ask you to label it the way that it is labeled. And so this is over time how the population size will grow. So our beginning letter is the initial growth stage, right? This is, we've started. Let's keep with our deer example. So this is the beginning of our deers growing into the habitat that they have claimed as their own. And when they begin to grow, they will reproduce very quickly, exponentially, you would say. And they will grow in a really quick rate. We call this the exponential growth. There are no limiting factors because they have not hit the limit of their population yet. So they can continue to reproduce and grow and grow and grow exponentially until they start to hit some of their limiting factors. And you will see for letter C, this is when they start to slow down in their population growth. And eventually they will level off. And when they level off, we call that carrying capacity. That is the capacity at which a habitat, an area, a space, whatever you want to call it, the capacity in which that can house the species that we're talking about. And so there is a limit, and the limiting factors obviously limit this, but the carrying capacity is usually what we're interested in, right? Organisms can grow and grow and grow, but when they stop growing and level off, that's when we start to get interested. So carrying capacity is like keyword. There's a whole slide dedicated to it, but please draw this graph again, and we will practice this a little bit more in class. So continuing on, what is carrying capacity? Well, we just sort of talked about it, but we'll give you like a formal definition. A carrying capacity is the maximum organisms that can survive on available resources. So whatever is available in that area that they are living, there is a limit. And so this is the maximum amount of organisms that can survive within that limit. This is super specific to an ecosystem, a species, and an area. So in this example, it's number of rabbits, right? We see that exponential growth, and we've hit carrying capacity. So we're going to level off. Now this is like a beautiful leveled off. It's absolutely perfect, right? It follows distinctly the line. That's not really how it happens. How it really happens is in this graph over here. So usually what will happen is you see this original growth, right? The initial growth, we have that exponential growth, and there is a carrying capacity already established, right? There's already a finite amount of resources typically in an area. Obviously you could like plant more food and stuff, but for this example, we're gonna say there's a finite amount. And so typically a population will overshoot that. They'll go above what the carrying capacity allows them to do. And so they will go above it, and then they realize that this population is too big for the resources available, and so they will start to die out and they'll dip back down. And then they can kind of repopulate a little bit and overshoot a little bit, but much less than the first time. And then, it's a little bit more of like a trying to find the balance versus immediately hitting carrying capacity and not going over at all. It's in nature, it's a bit more of the overshooting, undershooting, trying to maintain a balance as time goes on. So what happens if the population curve declines? Well, a decrease in population could be to a number of things. It could be a lack of resources, right? We were talking about earlier with our deer explanation that like if humans came in and cut down a bunch of trees, that would obviously cause a decrease in population. But additionally, a decrease in birth rate as like a general, like these are like the two, this is what actually causes the population to go down, right? A decrease in birth rate. If you're having less offspring, the population is going to decrease over time, and an increase in death rate. So if less people are being born and more people are dying, the population rate is going to start to fall, okay? And so this is just an example of that. If you hit carrying capacity and then you have a decrease in birth rate and an increase in death rate, you see that the population is starting to fall. Another graph that you should probably draw, it doesn't say it on the slide, but you should probably draw it, is a predator-prey graph. This is another way to graph populations because predators and prey are limiting factors for each other, okay? So as prey increases, the predator will also increase, right? As you get more food, you can support more predators, right? And so they will grow in their population. But as you get more predators, they're going to eat more prey. And so the prey will decrease, and because of that now there's not enough food, and so the predator amount will also decrease. And you can see this as like an alternating wave pattern, right? So as prey increases, then a little bit later you see the predators increase. Well, as the predators increase, the prey starts to decrease, and then, just like a half a wave later, you see the predators start to decrease. And as predators decrease, the prey can start to reproduce more frequently, so they'll increase again, which then makes predators increase again. It's an ongoing pattern that you will see as predators go up. As prey go up, predators will go up, and vice versa in that case. And now let's talk about extinction. So we've been talking about these population growths. Well, eventually populations can hit zero. And we call that extinction. And this is the disappearance of a species. And so you've, I'm sure, heard of examples of this. Like this picture right here is the dodo bird. It's like probably I don't know, I feel like it's like the most famous example. You always hear about the dodo bird is extinct, right? But these two pictures down here, these two organisms just went extinct in 2021, okay? So it's still happening today. And I wanted to show you this graph because this is a graph of a rhino population. And you'll notice that at the end, they did go extinct, or they will go extinct if poaching continues the way that it is currently going. And so we had quite a high population of rhinos, but as the poachers, and again, this is human involvement, as the poachers increase and increase and increase, the amount of rhinos is drastically falling. And if nothing happens in time, the rhino population will go extinct, and we've already lost like a subspecies of rhino. So it would be devastating to continue to poach these organisms just right out of existence. So I wanted to bring this to your attention because I think it's really important. And last but certainly not least, let's talk about ourselves, humans. So a couple questions that I really just want you to ask yourself. We are going to talk about this more in class, but I want you to be thinking about this. This is your species. So when did humans hit exponential growth? I want you to look at that image below, are we still in exponential growth? Have we hit carrying capacity? What does all this actually mean? And so when you're looking at this, you can see a pretty solid amount of humans, right? I mean, yeah, there's some growth, but like these are thousands of years, and it's not really growing that, crazily. And you see there are dips. There have been dips in time. This in particular is the Black Plague, and there was like a distinct dip in the human population from that plague. And then 1750. And I don't know how good you are with history, but 1750 was the Industrial Revolution. And when that hit, everything took off. Human population, boom, we're in exponential growth. And right now we're between 7 and 8 billion. That is a lot of people. And as you can see, we have not actually leveled off yet, but there's no real consensus. Scientists haven't really confirmed, like, it's going to be this year, we're going to hit carrying capacity. That hasn't been finalized, but I personally do think we're getting close. So I'd like you to think about that and how you feel about all of this. And like I said, we're going to talk more about this in class. So fantastic job. I'm really proud of you guys. I'll see you in class.